everyone. Welcome to Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's episode, I have with me Brent Feldman. Brent is the co-founder and lead SEO at Matchbox Design Group. He has worked in the marketing industry for over 15 years with a focus on developing brands and driving traffic to websites. He oversees both the design and SEO teams at Matchbox, and he is passionate about helping businesses achieve their online goals. In his spare time, Brent enjoys playing with his kids, hanging out with his wife, and playing guitar. He's also a fan of craft beer. Brent, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Right on. So, hey, Brent, in regards to working with clients, there's so many aspects of things to do for them, and they come to you with so many online problems, and they are trying to grow their business and so on and so forth. And so, I know that you work on content and coming up with content ideas, strategy at your agency. What would you say is the most important element to consider when developing a content strategy for a client?
Yeah, definitely. Good first question. I would say, especially in terms of thinking about the strategy as a whole, it's good to start with the base level stuff, but also think as holistically as possible. Because certainly, even as you can kind of think on a micro level about, what am I doing for a campaign? What am I doing for, sort of like an individual targeted strategy, or, what is my overall big picture content strategy? So I've certainly seen it to where, maybe you don't think holistically enough. And then there's, pages within the site, not thinking about specific funnels or, really deep, low level stuff, but they can really actually just be fundamental to making the whole content strategy work. And so anyway, the big thing about it is that you've got to start with, just a sitemap, thinking about the content on individual pages, digging down, deep into, the general content of a page, but also when it comes to actual, maybe targeted or campaign stuff, using the kind of basic marketing ideas of who's my audience, who am I pitching to, what am I talking about on this page, what are my CTAs, where are they going to go? And definitely we've seen it to where sometimes people start to get too deep too quick, as in they'll jump into what is this keyword that I'm targeting on this page? And I feel like that's a step maybe too far down the line, that as long as you back it up and you can get to the bigger picture, it's much easier to start articulating that need later on if you know the big idea.
Fantastic. So you talked about you dropped several nuggets there that I want to explore. For instance, personas. There's so many companies and even marketing agencies, and I know it seems to be overlooked from what I've seen, and even by clients. It's like, who are you trying to reach? Well, everybody who want, let's just take a renovation company. Who are you trying to reach for kitchen cabinets? It's like, well, everybody. Well, no, you're not. There's a certain demographic. You're not trying to reach people who own apartments. You're not trying to reach people or who live in apartments. Maybe you're trying to reach people who own the apartment because you make a ton of money. But you're not looking to reach renters. You're not looking to reach. Are you looking to reach people on acreages or people in the city, and how much money do they make? So what is it? So that's the importance of what it is. But my question that I pose is there a strategy that you found that is the most helpful, or a process, or whichever, in regards to coming up with that customer persona for clients?
Yeah, that's interesting because, trying to figure out who it is can start with research. You can always look into analytics data and try to, maybe figure out who they are based on, their kind of interest types. But creating some of these personas can also start with talking to your actual customers too. Yeah. We frequently recommend people to do surveys, who are your customers? What are they interested in? What are they like? And what are these people considering throughout the buying process? Also look at, models of potentially other competitors too. Who are they looking at in terms of, the type of people they're trying to reach? But the more articulate that you are in identifying who that target audience is, the better it's going to resonate with them when you're sending out that messaging. Because if you don't know your client, you can't talk to them effectively.
Absolutely. And what's amazing is, not to make this about me, but I was the marketing director of a local car dealership that is an international brand. And they had no personas for each of their vehicles that they were trying to sell, because I asked for that data. And it totally blew my mind away. Because like, how are you going to target an ad and write an ad if you don't know who the ad is for? And I couldn't believe it that a company this large, I'm not going to say the brand, the company this large did not even have that basic foundation. So it's important, isn't it? Because it really dictates so many things about what's your social media posts going to look like from copywriting perspective. What's your brand voice going to be? What's your blog posts going to look like? What's your funnel going to look like? What's your imagery going to look like? So yeah, it's pretty critical, isn't it?
Oh, totally. Actually, it's so interesting that you mentioned for like, maybe a car dealership. They've got empirical data, that's right in front of them. If people are coming into the dealership to actually shop for a vehicle, note that, like, who are these types of people that are actually shopping there? And then basically, aggregate that data, chalk it up into what could be considered a more holistic persona, and then, start writing towards that directly. But that's one of the ones where you're like, wow, that pathway to figuring out your persona is probably the easiest maybe of any of them. You have these physical customers. You see the people asking for these vehicles for the people that are, trying to get in these cars. So yeah, that would be easy to put together.
And so this dealership was around for under its current brand for 10, but before that, in total 20. So frankly, I went into the CRM and I dug into the CRM. And the amount of data that is available in a CRM, and if businesses don't have a CRM, we can talk about the importance of a CRM. I was able to dig into the data and look and see that a lot of the people that were buying the entry-level vehicle, like a sedan, entry-level sedan, were younger, And as people got older, it was fascinating. As people got older, so they buy a 4-door sedan and then they graduate, they have a kid, they're like, oh my goodness, this is too small. Car seat problems, yada, yada, yada. So, when you know what their problems are based on the customer persona, you know how to write ads. And so anyway, and then they would graduate to an SUV, and then a bigger SUV because, they don't want a minivan because minivans are not stylish or not.
They're not cool anymore.
Not cool anymore. So they want a 7-seater minivan or 7-seater SUV. So yeah, it was fascinating to dig into that. And honestly, there's so much data. Like people finance vehicles, so you can look and see what their income is, and not exactly, but you can see from their occupation in the CRM of what they do. And then I think you would agree that common people think alike, and so it's like if a certain amount of people are buying this vehicle, and you can look up, let's say they're an accountant or a teacher. Teachers think alike. You can go and look and create a persona around a teacher and say, this is Sally Smith, teacher. This is why she bought this vehicle. She had a baby. They had a baby. She's married. She makes this amount of money. She likes doing this, this, and this. And then you can I don't mean to take over this whole thing here, by the way.
No. But that's totally it. Just using the data.
Yeah. Because I just thought you can ask your salespeople.
Exactly.
They should know their customer. They should know their customer to be able to find out what they like doing. If they look, she likes doing this, this, and this. Boom, you've just built a persona.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some of those finer points actually that you touched on there that nailing, when you have customers and you interact with them, you get some of that, tangible feedback on who they are that you can chalk up into the persona. Like, exactly. What are the activities they like doing? Where do they spend their time? Where are they going to be taking this vehicle to? Like, what, all of that stuff is incredibly important. And also just one more thing about, the auto industry and about a lot of industries. There's plenty of data accessible that's out there, whether it's, marketing studies, reports, there's just so much data that's available. All you have to do is look for it and then make sure that you're putting that into the picture of who the potential client is. But that can be so valuable in serving the purpose of who am I speaking to as a customer.
Do you have any, do you have any recommendations regards to where resources that off the top of your head of where that data could be found?
I mean,
for different industries, I don't know.
I don't know as far as particular industries, I will say my Google foo is pretty good. I wish I had some really amazing research area that blanketed everything. But I will
research data.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just common terms, actually a lot of that data is probably just a Google search away, and it could probably exist on a million different resources or sites. But at the same time, just doing the search for it sometimes is the easiest thing.
Yeah. I just thought
it's the let me Google that for you. Like, I don't know if you ever use that link.
Yes, I do. I've sent that to people. I've created that link and sent it to people. But another thing you could do is find your customer on Facebook and see what they're posting about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you touched on something else, funnels and developing content for the funnel. So how important is it to segment the funnel and come up with different, and what is the strategy behind that, do you think?
Yeah. Thinking about
when I say funnel, I mean top, bottom, middle.
Yeah,
however
for sure.
you want to describe funnels nowadays. There's so many different ways people talk about them, but
definitely top, middle, bottom. Thinking about it in direct, sort of relationship to your, not just your site, but as a whole. How do you kind of identify, these customers that are in these certain stages? But the best place to translate that is to your site, so that you make sure that you're serving the right information to that customer at the right point in time, and setting up funnels that have really good CTAs to lead people down the funnel. I would also say that, this can extend certainly to your email marketing, your social marketing, it extends all over the place. But thinking about those, bits that you want to sort of serve and deliver along the process are really critical. And not to mention, if you're getting it wrong, that can disrupt the funnel or make it irrelevant in general. So anyway, the big thing about establishing funnels is just trying to understand the questions that your customers are asking about the product. What are they interested in? What are they thinking about? What are they trying to, sort of ascertain from your website or from your marketing materials about that product to help them make a decision to get there? And the more you can articulate that and dig in on what are those questions that they've got, that will help eliminate their sort of hesitancy to buy or purchase or commit or subscribe, all of those things. It really, digging through those questions and having that sort of relationship with them can make it much easier to have those concrete stages of the funnel and also work them towards a conversion.
And I guess it comes down to research, right? In knowing, using even just a Google sheet or an Excel file with, different tabs for top, middle, and bottom, and, doing the research and putting what are those questions that they're asking, and then creating that content based on that, as you've suggested. Do you have any examples of any businesses that you can share in generic terms, not the brand name of the business or like a specific industry where you help develop that type of a content strategy you could share about? Or
yeah, sure.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I mean, I would say that, like, all right, so like an automobile, like, a manufacturer, custom automobile manufacturer, identifying people that are interested in maybe a very high value product. You have to be catering to that person along the steps of their journey as they become interested in something. Certainly that could start with something as simple as like, sort of the general awareness of it. As there, many sort of products in the marketplace, it can just be general awareness. And then as they kind of work through that stage of awareness, it's, definitely then it's interest. And once that interest is there, what is the process going to look like for them to, build one of these, sort of vehicles? What is it going to look like to receive one of these vehicles? What does, maintenance look like? How reliable? What do other people say about it, using social proof and cues from, reviews? And then it's really, working people towards that end goal of getting in touch, because at the end of the day, the lead is really the most important thing. So after you've kind of like answered these questions, you've driven the awareness, you've answered these questions, then it's really about trying to convince them and get them into the process. So can I get into a build sheet that may give me the specs of what these individual vehicles are? And then can I choose my options? Can I be invested in it? And then once, the people are basically invested to that point, it's much easier to, kind of work them into, okay, cool. Now submit your information. Now that you have gone this far and you've told us exactly what you want in this vehicle, why don't you give us your information? Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. So basically, you've just outlined that one of the ways to create content, one of the content strategies in the funnel is, from what I heard, was like a build and price sort of deal for a luxury automaker, or what you're trying to build or what you want, which is just it's a form. It's a survey funnel.
It totally is. Exactly. Yeah. I as soon as somebody is willing to, start providing that information, that they're obviously in any pieces of information. I know that sometimes it's not the end goal to get somebody to subscribe to a newsletter, or that's not like your biggest KPI on the list. But at the end of the day, that little bit of information that a potential customer is willing to give you means that, you've got an audience who is interested, and you need to start serving them the right things that is just going to move them farther down.
Yeah. What are some of the ways to get people onto a newsletter that you've found to be successful?
Honestly, newsletters or subscribing to an email list where you update them with information, with news stories, with new product features, all sorts of things. I would say that you can run these things through social. Actually, I've seen definitely really successful social campaigns. It's like, hey, stay in touch with us, but you have to be offering the customer kind of like that tangible benefit. Just subscribe to our newsletter, I feel sometimes falls flat with people.
It doesn't work.
What are you actually giving them? What are the people getting out of this? You're going to receive daily tips. You're going to receive, tricks. You're going to receive, new content, fresh ideas about how to use this product. I mean, there's a billion ways to do it, but I feel like offering people something that they're going to get in return for signing up for an email newsletter list is just, it sounds so basic and simple, but really, unless that's there, sometimes there's no motivation. It's like, fine, I'll give you my email, but I don't want more junk.
Yeah, exactly. Have you found in your experience, lead magnets, like free guides, free hiring guides, like a free car buying guide, or a free home renovation company hiring guide, or white papers for case studies, those to be content again in the strategy that we're talking about, developing a strategy for a funnel?
Absolutely.
Those things work.
Yeah. I know. And actually what instantly comes to mind is the HubSpot model of white papers. I felt like was And if they, have definitely have really worked that, I think, well, to their benefit, anybody who kind of subscribes to that, model, but white papers became the centerpiece to whatever the strategy was. And I will certainly, I'll vouch for it. I feel like it's a wonderful thing to do if you can provide your customer information, just hey, give us your email address and, we'll let you download this gated content in a way. It's a brilliant way to earn that first sort of, interaction point and hopefully pathway to converting that customer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. HubSpot, just shout out to HubSpot. They're so if they write a piece of content that's a great blog post, and then at the end of it, they have some resource that's related, for instance, email marketing templates. They have some resource that's related that is so irresistible that you're yeah, I'm going to give you my email because I
know what they're doing.
And it's so incredibly valuable.
I get sucked in every time, and I'll look at it and I'll get to they'll give me the juicy piece of content that's on the page. And then they're like, well, download the 101 tips or, and I'm like, right,
it's such amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about other pieces of content after that? After that opt-in, I've seen some people do some things, but I want to get your take on it before I put my 2 cents in for what it's worth.
Yeah, definitely.
Instance, you've got them there. What other things do you think businesses can do? For instance, car dealers, I'll throw this out there. As soon as they get a car dealer buying guide, or you talked about that survey. First thing I would do afterwards is offer them a test drive and offer them $25 $25 Visa gift card to come in for a test drive. But no commitment whatsoever. No pressure free, no commitment test drive. We'll even pay you to drive the car. Because if you have good salespeople, they're going to sell. But do you have any ideas like that you'd like to share? Or
actually, one thing I really I want to share about, once you get them on, a list or something. I had actually recently heard this on, it was part of the AdWorld conference. And they were talking about the relationship that you can develop that is extremely meaningful through email marketing that usually doesn't become part of the journey after somebody actually makes a purchase on a website. And this was something that really stood out to me, and I felt like it was incredibly important because there's something that you kind of get out of going into a store, buying something, and like, that kind of reward of like, hey, I walked out with a tangible product, and not to mention there's the interaction with like, the sales associate or somebody giving you recommendations on, oh my gosh, I own that and I love it. This is how I use it or whatever. But you obviously you don't get that as part of the e-commerce experience. But here's where I feel like this is really important, that the follow-up emails that are coming in after that purchase are really important, of saying, hey, thank you so much for, buying and being a part of, what we do or what we believe in. Here's some like ideas on how to use your product. Here's some companion products that may go really well with that product. And then just like dripping those in, and not to mention dripping them in quickly. People think that they're going to get overwhelmed with emails. Like, yes, all right, fine. Somebody may just delete those emails or something. But also, if you're hitting that person at the right time where the feelings, the sensation of the purchase are like, right there and very strong, hit them with good feelings of like, also like, hey, we care about you, ex customer. Obviously, don't put ex customer. Nobody will respond to that. Yeah. But, it is. That's it's smart. About building that relationship soon after the purchase. That's so important. Anyway, a little, like not the same way as like nuggets of, what do you kind of, do through like, email marketing tactics. Yeah. But I do feel like that was such an important sentiment and something I brought out of that conference.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome. I wanted to attend. Did you attend that virtually?
I did. Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to attend it. I just, time was a factor, but when you were talking, what it made me think of was, I'm a huge home cook. I subscribe to America's Test Kitchen, and, I have probably bought either all of their their top recommended stuff, except for like their frying pans and stuff. Because like my wife would kill me if I bought a $375 frying pan. So sometimes it's the best, the second choice. But, you talked about that, and ThermoWorks, they make the top thermometers for accuracy in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm on their list. And as you were talking, I was like, yeah, they have done exactly what you're saying. Send me content all the time. It's a newsletter. That's tutorials about cooking. And, and then they pitch different products in there that I'm like, oh yeah, I got to get that. So yeah, it's like using that to nurture and to cross sell. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Actually, it just sparked something for me too, actually, which was like really watching Rand Fishkin, actually. And he did, he was part of the conference as well. He had actually had mentioned the fact that he subscribes to, a cooking magazine or, website. And they provide, they were like, oh my gosh, we just tried this new whatever, and he said that the power of those recommendations are just instant. Yes, I need it, like whatever it is, if you say that it's good, and it's because people are putting their trust in these resources, and especially people that are delivering this ongoing content, and it's really powerful stuff. And this is kind of maybe, akin to like what you see in like, influencer culture. But the thing that I feel like people get wrong kind of about influencer culture is like, okay, yes, this person has a wide audience, but do you know who they're speaking to? Now, when you're talking about like, all these recommendations on like, cooking products or maybe they're, ingredients or something that, they want you to buy, or something that's, a chili paste that you're like, yes, I really need this. Those recommendations are coming across so strongly because you already have like, this strong sentiment towards all of their recommendations. You're like, I bought this and it worked out great. Yeah, I'm going to buy the next thing that they recommend because it's really good and I trust them. So anyway, just, the power in putting something in an article or in a, resource, a website, whatever, of where trust already is established can just absolutely be a catalyst for that buying journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many things that you're talking about that sparked my mind in regards to, like, you talked about all of these articles, blog posts. You could literally repurpose your content for coming up with blog posts that are in the middle of the funnel based on the questions that you asked that are included in your email newsletter that are happening automatically as the person's coming from the top in the funnel, getting the lead magnet, and then coming in to the middle of the funnel. You published these blog posts 6 months ago, but you're using them in the middle of the funnel because that's where they work. You're also posting them on social media to get people into the funnel, to get the lead magnet, to get into the funnel, to get the article, to get the cross promotion, to get this, that, and the other thing. And you're making videos on YouTube about it, and you're developing all this content, and you're creating all this value, and you're getting all this traffic. And at the end of the day, you're making money.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
You touched on influencers there for a minute. What's your take on that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit about, using influencers to create content?
Yeah, definitely. You know what? In general, I feel like influencers do hold a considerable amount of, power with their audience. They definitely have a captive audience. I watch quite a few podcasts myself. And actually I'm a big sneaker fan. I really like sneakers.
Right,
I watch sneaker pod. So if they love or hate a sneaker, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, actually, you know what? You're right. Yeah. I either love or hate that. So It's just so funny that as you kind of like feel like their interests, your interests, almost just like you do with you would with a social group, those things get kind of adopted in a way. And so I will say, people can hold a lot of influence, but just what I touched on just like a second ago of like, if there's somebody who is on Instagram and yes, they might have 1 million followers or, even in the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, sometimes, people will drop in, products, or they're like, hey, let's send this to, this person. But if it isn't hitting the right audience at the end of the day, they may have a lot of, sort of visibility, but at the same time, that might not hit. But it's also, it's about, just what we talked about even earlier, personas. Like, who are you actually trying to speak to? Does that influencer speak to those people? And then if so, then yes, maybe it is a really good fit. But otherwise, it can be kind of like a pray and spray, sort of approach where I was like, you're just putting it in the hands of somebody who has visibility, but it's not necessarily going to connect. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, influencers can be really powerful and really positive and good. But I feel like you've got to be articulate in the search for them. If not, you may just be, blasting out there and hoping for the best.
So that it comes back again to, who is your customer? Who's your persona? And are they serving that audience? And if they're not, like you said, it's pointless. And there's no reason to we're not in the 1980s where it's billboard advertising and TV advertising and newspapers where you don't even know if it's bloody working or not. Because the internet has this thing called tracking and UTM parameters and call tracking phone numbers. And you can even buy darn URLs that track stuff and to forward things and advanced stuff. But yeah. So how can you ensure your content then? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I actually, no, go ahead. Just what you touched on though. I wanted to jump in on that too.
Yeah, go ahead.
The billboards and maybe the traditional media. I had a conversation on my podcast the other day with Jill Gaynor, and she was talking about how she helps clients that will be looking for traditional media outlets and but also do OTT TV commercials.
OTT is huge.
Yeah. And but she'll also help do traditional, media research like billboards or something too. But at the end of the day, it's about, and this is kind of like ancient marketing stuff that, from the beginning of time of multiple touches with, the customer. So we do live in an era that we have so much data that we can sift through and acquire from our efforts. But sometimes there's really basic elements of hey, DuckDuckGo hit me with a billboard in my city. And I was like, wow. I know it's funny. Yes, I'm a pretty loyal Googler, subscribe to a lot of products. And obviously I'm just, using Google all the time. But at the same time, I was like, you know what, I should look at what is indexing on DuckDuckGo maybe. And I would like to check it out anyway. And so it wasn't until that touch point, yes, I've seen a billion articles about it. And they have a lot of traditional commercials, but it's so funny that I was like, that was the touch point that actually got me at the end of the day.
Yeah. If I was a business owner, like owned a renovation company or furnace company or something like that, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I would advertise my lead magnet and I would have a dedicated URL on the billboard. And I would have a AIDA framework ad with the lead magnet on the left and the call to action on the right with the URL evenly sprawled out over the bottom that was tracked, or a phone number that they could call to get it. And that's the only way you could ever convince me to do a billboard.
I agree.
If it worked, I would continue to use it. Like, even if I was a lawyer, I'd have something up there. Like, that's more direct response marketing, but that's my forte.
You know what? Making it trackable, I think, is always good advice. And now I see a lot of people using, QR codes more so in traditional advertising and stuff in order to make sure that the dollars are being spent effectively. I've talked about this, to clients and other people, like, so many times. There's one billboard that I truly admire, and it was the simplicity, not the trackability. Unfortunately, it actually, I'll just call out the company here because it made you remember. Yeah, it did. Yeah, so go on. The whole billboard was justwoodenfences.com. They didn't put anything. Beautiful, just absolute marketing bliss.
Is brilliant.
Yeah, right.
That's bloody brilliant. That is bloody brilliant.
Yeah. All right. So the only fault I would have there is that, yes, it's not necessarily trackable if that's obviously their main domain. They could have used a / something or whatever if they had an offer.
A different TLD.
Exactly. But and definitely they could use just a different TLD in order to say, oh, okay, well, this is the one that's on there. But regardless, beautiful. Just what a nice simple web address. And that's all it said. Sorry. Billboards is something I'm very passionate about. Looking at billboards being overly complicated or in a scripty font that you can't read, or something stupid, or generalized messages where they're like,
boring.
Yeah, St. Louis. By the way, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, and so anyway, but there's nothing that actually says they care that you're in that city or that they're in that city. It's just hey, St. Louis, and you're like, stop it.
Anyway. That's just a waste of money, especially depending. Coca-Cola can afford to waste money like that. Most small to medium-sized enterprises cannot. So you need to do something to make sure that you're reaching the right audience and getting a return on investment. But anyway, you mentioned something that I want to come back to, which how can you ensure the content's being seen by the right people?
Wow. So many things, so many thoughts come to mind. And, we had a discussion the other day internally about bounce rate and how, is bounce rate actually an indicator that, maybe the wrong audience is seeing it. And it just, it started making us think about, is that bounce rate attributed to that? Or is it that, we have CTAs on that page that are meant to sort of be a grab it and go, here's the phone number. Here's what I need. Here's the lead generation form that may be on another site or something. And then that, bounce rate is actually not necessarily attributed to, failure, but is literally actually maybe success of hey, that was the end of the goal. We got tons of, leads, conversions. We got tons of calls and stuff identified through the website by a tracking phone number. Was that the goal at the end of the day? But I think the question is good about, is the right audience seeing this content? Another, a thing that I don't want to forget to say too, is that, we actually, we may have some posts on sites that will generate just tons and tons of traffic. For great terms. But at the end of the day, we know that maybe that isn't actually serving, those people might not convert. Maybe they're not in the city of the, the business. They actually, they can't use the services of a local business that, that the work is being done for, but it's attracting a ton of traffic. And overall, we feel like, in aggregate, it's good, they got the information, they came to the site, raising, sort of like the profile of it and interest in pages on the site, and certainly, traffic in general. But at the same time, like, you want to make sure that the traffic that you are trying to get to a lead generation page or a landing page is hitting the right audience. So thinking about personas again, who am I directing my content towards? What do I want them to get out of it? What is the action at the end of the day? What is the purpose on the page? Really thinking about some of those base elements can help.
Yeah. I mean, I keep thinking about HubSpot. You got me. Like, the whole strategy of creating awesome editorial-based content. When I say editorial, I mean informational, high-value content about the subject matter of your industry, and a call to action at the bottom to get them to, even if the call to action is to go to a landing page, it's just, you touched on it. It's so brilliant.
Yeah.
To consider. Go ahead.
At an event yesterday, and actually we were talking about podcasts and how
goodness.
And the metrics, and I'm sure you probably have lots of thoughts and input here, but about connecting with the right audience. And the lovely thing about it is that you can look for the KPIs of, like, video, the watch time of this audience, or, what the KPIs can really show how engaged those viewers are. And when you get people into your podcast, this is something that can be extremely helpful for understanding that your content is hitting the right people. And you're kind of developing this relationship over time. But it's just, yet another, in addition to high value content,
Yeah. I mean, so I guess we're talking about how to measure the effect of your content, which is, we could have a whole episode in and of itself. And, I can't begin to tell you how many local businesses, let alone agencies, and with all respect for agencies out there, I'm sure not all of them are like this, but I've had some experience. And do you have Google Analytics set up? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's set up. The script is installed on the website, and that's it. There's nothing else. There's no goal configuration, event tracking, phone call tracking with events set up, so on and so forth. So I mean, now I don't mean to say that to slight agencies, but it's like, it's important to measure the effectiveness of your content and set those things up, isn't it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, wow, using the tools that are really at your fingertips and generally free in order to better understand the data is and how underemployed they are generally is sometimes shocking. And I don't, we will never fault clients for this, because, maybe they just don't have the internal resources or understanding in order to what they're doing or why. We just opened up an analytics account the other day that wasn't hooked up to Search Console. And I'm like, wow, how much valuable data that you're losing here that you
missed
don't
out
have
on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's those kind of small things. And then also, like, we love Google Optimize. Tests. Running simple tests too of, like, hey, what CTA language is going to, make sort of the best return here. Yeah. And I feel like, leveraging those kind of tools to do really simple things to figure things out better is just, measuring and tracking is important. You're right. We could spend a whole episode on this, and I could get really excited about all sorts of different things. Like, I will put this out there. No shade to, like Hotjar and other tools that do this, but we've actually had great success with Microsoft Clarity, and it's actually free too.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So anyway, as a tool, if you want to do mouse tracking, trying to decode what's going on with UX issues, or figuring out, where somebody may be, dropping off, or by the way, I love the term click rage. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but where somebody's clicking obsessessively on something, thinking it's a button or a link when it's not.
I know what you're talking about now.
But Microsoft Clarity is. Yeah, it's a great tool. We've used it a lot recently, and it's been invaluable, really.
I like Matomo because it's an integrated. It has everything. Are you familiar with Matomo?
No, but I'll log that
check it out. Matomo. It's it used to be called, I can't remember. It used to be called Piwik. Cool. And now there's another company called Piwik Pro, but Matomo has everything all built in. Everything built into one. And for people who are frustrated with GA4, which I am, and that's another topic, is Matomo is more like Universal Analytics than GA4. But anyway.
You don't want to talk about GA4? You don't want to?
Not right now. We'll have you. We'll go. I'll have you back, and we'll talk about that on another day. But,
actually, every Friday we've set up a learning session for GA4 just to dig in. I know we don't want to dig into the memes and all the stuff about it in general.
A lot of people think it's been released too soon. It's in beta. It's built for more enterprise clients than the small. So, but anyway, whichever. Do you think there's any predictions for how content marketing will change in the next 10 years?
Content marketing in general, I just touched on like podcasts, and I feel like putting ways to put content out there. I actually, like in general have really enjoyed, kind of doing the podcast for, our agency. I enjoy being here and stuff with you, but like, I feel like marketing your own content through your podcast or getting your content on a podcast, whether that be kind of like an advertisement or whatever, but like actually putting content out there through this sort of venue when, we're reaching such niche audiences, I think is going to be a continual trend. We've seen it with like, television subscribers, and we've seen like, as in like people have all these microservices that they're, selecting. And it's because of really the choosiness of the audience. And it's also the availability of all this, like, kinds of like, different content that we have at our disposal. So anyway, I definitely see that as being something that will continue on for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that I think is up and coming, and you mentioned it, over the top television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's going to be huge, and developing content for over the top television and videos, because my goodness. Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, comment on that.
I do. And I will not put myself as an expert or even.
No, neither am I.
Way below. But I can't wait to see what people do to experiment with that format. As in like subscribing to the notion that, we have to do these, sort of like, these, 30-second, 15-second, minute, sort of ads and stuff that go in there.
Yeah.
I would really love to see the format of that change. Like, we've already seen like with people experiencing, or experimenting with like almost like UGC oriented, kind of like content or something, but like, do something different, use that space differently. But then OTT also in general, as we have these, web enabled devices, what kind of like, messages or like, clips or links or things, all sorts of stuff that, how can that be leveraged in interesting and creative ways? Not just like annoying, like, oh, great, they put a tab over the top of like, my content or something, but like literally like what are other ways that can be utilized?
Yeah. Thank gosh, you made me think of the metaverse. Like, what's going to happen there? I don't even want to touch it. I just creating content for the metaverse. Oh, goodness.
Oh, and brands go
ahead.
Oh, no, then brands like, investing and like, putting things into the metaverse, like Nike, like putting like shoes into the metaverse so that people can buy them. And like, anyway.
Hey, what's one big takeaway you want listeners to get from this episode, Brent?
I would definitely say that it's always important to think of your audience. It's always important to be, really, sort of articulate with how you're approaching and just making sure that you're putting all the pieces together before you jump into that micro strategy. I feel like that's, really, really important. Another thing that I'd love, for people to take away in terms of like, ranking well and doing SEO in general is that it is great for user experience. It is not just, there are some people who are kind of like, oh, well, maybe, I'm already experiencing plenty of success. Everything is great. But, ranking well, doing well, engineering things for better performance in terms of ranking performance can just be better for the user experience in general. So I'd always pitch that, just thinking about SEO, thinking about what you can rank for and why, it can be great for your brand and for your customers too.
Yeah. Hey, Brent, it's been amazing having you on the show. How can listeners connect with you?
I would definitely say, please check us out at matchboxdesigngroup.com. You can also check out our podcast, which is Mix and Matchbox. So that is on YouTube and Spotify. And we're actually working on dispersing that more widely, but right now that's where you can find it. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. So definitely. But I will say this has been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully maybe we can just riff on some other topics at another point in time.
Sure. I would love to. I would love to. So thanks very much for being on the show, and you have a great day.
Great. Thanks.